I'm Steve Lascalzo, and this is The Way. Welcome to the final recap and discussion podcast episode for This is the Way podcast about Andor, a Star Wars story. Episode 12 is called Jedha, Kyber, Erso, and these are the things that tie together the streaming series of Andor and the 2016 movie Rogue One. This is the last episode of the BBY-1 story arc, and also the series. All episodes of both seasons of Andor are now streaming, and at the time of this podcast episode's release, it's been available for a month. You can find a more general first impression podcast for each of the 4 story arcs in Season 2 on This is the Way Podcast's channel. This is the Way Podcast also covered Season 1, but you'll have to go back to our episodes 91 to 104 back in 2022. Did you know that when you finish watching episode 12 of Season 2, you've seen at least 8 hours and 22 minutes of Star Wars television in Season 2, all released in 1 month's time.
On program. That means hands on head, eyes front, feet on the floor. Do it!
I can freely admit that it's taken me a while to get the show completed. The show aired more than a month ago, and it's been a long time since, at least between episode 11's release and episode 12's. Not to mention, there wasn't really a deadline for me anymore. I didn't have to get them done within a week, so after that last episode, or the last 3 episodes aired, I took my time. I also had to get a new desk, so you may notice sound differences between this episode and past episodes because I've got a new setup. The old desk was nice and sturdy, and the mic was mounted to that desk, so I have to bump it pretty hard. But now even just sometimes my voice, if I'm speaking too closely to the mic, it will shake the mic arm and there'll be sounds like they may be right now. You may have heard some just in the short time span that I've been talking right now. I won't even know because it's just not possible for me to record a section, listen to the whole thing and make sure that it's fine, and then move on or re-record. I just can't do that. Until I come up with a new process, this is going to be how I have to do things. I'm going to have to let the perfection go a little bit. I'm going to have to just get some of these episodes done. I'm almost at the end of June, which means I have another news update podcast to produce soon. So just bear with me. I'll get things figured out, figure out if I need to mount the microphone differently or on something else. It's just how I have to do things for now. And I'm just glad you're listening. I didn't even know that episode 11 had a problem with the upload. So the encoding or the upload there was a problem. Nobody even told me until a friend just a couple weeks ago said, "Hey, did you know that your episode cut out in the middle?" I had to go back and re-encode, re-upload. And in the case of YouTube, that meant deleting the old video and the old episode page and putting up an entirely new one. So I lost any views that I had already. Of course, they were only getting half the episode, so I guess that's a good thing. But I'm just dealing with a lot of stuff. If you've been following along, my father still has one more procedure to go. In fact, June 1st or July 1st is going to be his next procedure for a valve replacement. So if you're the praying type, please add my father to your prayers because he could sure use them. The whole family could use them because we want some peace and comfort as well. And I've still got podcasts to release. The June news update podcast is coming out soon. Finally we'll get this finished, hopefully today. And I have a baseball podcast with Baseball and Bible together, and I do that every day. So I'm dealing with stuff, but I'm gonna get through it.
Apologies, I know you've been waiting.
Okay, back to Star Wars and back to Andor. Tony Gilroy is the showrunner and creator. He's a scriptwriter, yes. He did write on Andor, but he can't write them all. He let Tom Bissell bring home the season and the show with the last 3 episodes, 10, 11, and 12. Bissell was a journalist and video game story writer, but does have prior experience with novels, TV, and movies. You can check out Bissell's work in TV with the Mosquito Coast series for Apple TV+. He also worked on a movie screenplay and the novel that it's based on. If you find the disaster artist. It is about the production process for what has been called, by some, not everyone, the worst movie ever made, Tommy Wiseau's The Room.
I did not hit her. It's not true. I did not hit her. I did not. Oh, hi, Mark.
Alonso Ruiz Palacios is the director for episodes 10, 11, and 12, this being his first Star Wars project. The crew worked on more than just his 3 directed episodes. Not just cast, but a lot of the crew was shared in Season 2 between the 4 story arcs. I can't repeat each cast and crew member on every podcast, and you've heard me repeat this time and time again throughout this season. I do more than most podcasts, though, by even reviewing IMDb pages for some of the supporting actors. I like to find the connections between the people that make the show. You'll hear examples when someone new pops up in episode 12. It does happen. And if there's a crew position or an actor in this episode that you would like to hear detailed better, you might try going back to the start of our coverage of Season 2. Find the first episode they worked on and keep listening. Full disclosure, of course, it helps my numbers.
I so appreciate the support.
That's not a bad thing for me, but also, this episode is long enough as it is. Here are some of the returning crew from previous episodes in Season 2. And if you want to hear about them, go back to a previous episode, because I do talk about director of photography, production designer, editor, music by, original Andor themes, casting directors, visual effects supervisor, visual effects producer, costume design, hair and makeup, special creature effects, and stunt coordinators.
On program.
Disney Plus posts a runtime for episodes that appear in parentheses when you're selecting which episode you want to watch in Disney Plus. The claim that they make is episode 12 takes 49 minutes. Well, I like to give the actual runtime, meaning the action from start to finish without previously on footage or any of the credits. So the runtime, if you skip the Lucasfilm limited screen and the Star Wars helmet sequence and the original theme music from Nicholas Bertel and Brandon Roberts, it's only 37 minutes and 56 seconds of action. Now, if you decided you want to watch the original theme music that is crafted for each episode, it appears before the episode, of course. It'll take you an additional half a minute or so, 38 minutes, 32 seconds to make it through all of that. The thumbnail description available on the show's Disney Plus episodes tab reads the same as the description on the show's episode page in Disney Plus. Like when you select the episode and then if you back out, it's on the episode page. Those descriptions between the thumbnail and that are the same. It reads, Cassian returns to Yavin with intel that will change everything.
You think anybody's listening?
I do. Someone's out there.
I always list the main cast, whether they're new or not. Every episode recap and discussion. Obviously, some of the cast has been lost along the way, and I'm doing things a little different this time. First, I'm going to mention the Andor show only cast. Denise Goff plays Supervisor Dedra Miro of the ISB. This is a character that didn't appear until episode 4 in season 1, but she was integral to the plot of the show moving forward from that time. Elizabeth Dulau is Kleya Marquis. I've said this numerous times already in episodes of this podcast, but I'm going to say it again. I might have actually even been one of the first to say how much I liked this character. I was doing it during season 1's coverage. Of all the characters I wanted to see more in Andor, Kleya is probably top of the list. Luthen, who departed the show in episode 10, he's a close second, but Elizabeth Dulau did a phenomenal job. In my headcanon, Kleya is involved in a lot of the spycraft behind the scenes during the original trilogy. I'd like to think also that she mentored Leia for a time after Alderaan's tragedy. I really think Kleya is an amazing, great character, and I just loved everything about her. Anton Lesser is Major Leo Partagaz, head of ISB operations on Coruscant. The character has a sad ending, but Lesser brought a gravitas to the role that I felt was very much needed. Benjamin Bratt took over the role of Bail Organa. He did a nice job, but I cannot help but wonder, was Jimmy Smits really unavailable? Or did the way that Gilroy wanted to develop the character of Bail Organa not feel right to Smits? I mean, he played him since the prequel trilogy. Was he simply too old? Too out of shape? I mean, I don't know how this works in Hollywood, but I'd be very disappointed to learn it was just a scheduling conflict or worse, money. I mean, is that all it was? Don't get me wrong, Brad does a fine job, but I would have preferred Smits play the character all the way out. Adria Arjona is Bix Kayleen, Faye Marseille is Vel Sartha, Alistair Mackenzie is back as Perrin Firtha, Muhammad Bayer is Wilman Pak, Alistair Petrie is General Davitz Draven, Jacob James Beswick is Supervisor Hirt, and now 2 characters from Rogue One and Andor.
Let's get to it.
Diego Luna plays Cassian Andor. I think there are some scenes in this episode where he's de-aged by CGI to look closer to how he appeared in Rogue One, and I think it's noticeable more closely to the end of the episode, but I'm fine with that, really. If you're going to do it, that's when you spend that kind of money. You don't need it for the whole show. Genevieve O'Reilly plays Mon Mothma. Because her role wasn't as significant here, I don't think they de-age Miss O'Reilly like they do Mr. Luna. Fleshing out the character from the origin in Return of the Jedi isn't something I really felt that I cared about, but it's either the writing or the acting or the combination of those that made me appreciate Mon Mothma a lot more. Alan Tudyk is back as the voice and performance artist for K2SO. I like the character, but my favorite droid's always going to be R2-D2, and nothing's going to change that.
You're welcome.
Duncan Powell is Melshi. It's not a character I felt was very important after watching Rogue One, but we do get a nice little background in Andor that makes sense, and it's just enough to feel different about the character after you watch Rogue One again. It doesn't change the movie, just a little. There's a little more attachment to this character. Ben Mendelsohn is back as director Orson Krennic. I mean, to me, he was the crazy, unpredictable villain you needed as a buffer to Vader and Sidious, so that you didn't need to include them in the story. Mendelsohn felt very much like he was playing the same character in both the movie and so many years later now in the show. And Forrest Whitaker is the fully paranoid hologram image of Saw Gerrera, and I'll say this, I still don't love the character. This show, however, does explain much better why he's such a loon. In fact, I read Rogue One Catalyst before the movie came out, and then I watched the movie with a bunch of guys when it came out, and I could not explain to them why this character was so weird. Well, it's been a hole in the story, in my opinion, that Gilroy, I think, directed his writer's room to fill in, and the Rhydonium stuff, I think they did an adequate job. It is unfortunate, however, that people who only watch the movie won't have any idea that the brain damage is from huffing fuel.
You have no idea where I am.
Now to the cast listings in the order of appearance section. Remember, first appearance in Season 2 merits a deeper look at the resume, but anyone already appearing gets skipped. Just too many names.
Nobody here gives their real name.
Tenzigo Weems was Eric McLennan. He was in Rogue One. He was just Rebel Tech back then. It's the same character. He just has a name now. As weird as that name is. I saw on IMDb he was on an episode of The Borgias and an episode of The Night Manager. Admiral Raddus was performed by James Henry Thomas. Henry Thomas does performance art and did so on Season 1 of Andor. He worked on Rise of Skywalker and The Acolyte as well for Star Wars. He also appeared as a rebel officer in Rogue One and was Aki Aki in Rise of Skywalker in addition to performing puppetry work. Raddus was voiced by Stephen Stanton. He is a voice actor extraordinaire. Video game work dating back to the late 90s. His first Star Wars work might be as Yoda in a short called Sith Apprentice. In Battlefront 2, he did Ben Kenobi and Darth Maul. Empire at War, once again, he was Obi-Wan and also Captain Antilles. He's the voice of Stinky Pete in the Toy Story Mania game attraction at Disneyland and Disney World. He voiced a Triple Crown race announcer and went uncredited in the 2010 Secretariat movie, and then movie and TV work started rolling in, as well as continuing his extensive work in games. He was a political ad voice in Parks and Recreation. He did voice work for 2012's Total Recall, Star Wars The Clone Wars Legacy as the voice of Gari, Star Wars Rebels Recon Missions game as the voice of Tarkin. Rogue One, he was of course Raddus. In Rebels, he voiced 20 roles in 19 episodes, including Kenobi and Tarkin. In the Resistance animated series, he was Griff and other voices in 19 episodes. Clone Wars, he was 29 voices in 29 episodes, including Tarkin, Mas Amedda, and Colonel Meeber Gaskin.
All right, enough with the chatter. Let's get this show on the road.
He voiced a Pike in the Book of Boba Fett series. 12 voices in 11 episodes of The Bad Batch, including Tarkin, Amedda, and RA-781. Most recently, besides Andor, he was the voice of Fiero's horse in the movie Wicked. Senator Pamlo was Sharon Duncan Brewster. She's set to appear in the John Wick spin-off as Nogi, and Enola Holmes 3 as a reprisal of her sequel role as Mira Troy. 54 roles listed on IMDb, including a role on Casualty. 2 roles and episodes of Doctors. 16 episodes of EastEnders, Doctor Who, and Dune Part 1. And of course, she played Pamlo in Rogue One and voiced her for the character's animated appearance in The Bad Batch. Senator Noel Jubble is Jonathan Eris, 110 listings on IMDb. He did a few video games. Most of that work is TV and movies. He was in the World's End part of Edgar Wright's Cornetto trilogy. He was Anderson in the Benedict Cumberbatch-led Sherlock series on the BBC. Would you believe all those roles, though, and no Doctors, and no Casualty on the BBC? He, of course, is reprising his Rogue One role. Karis Nemec was Alex Lothar, and it's just the voice from the manifesto in this. It was made by the character from Season 1. He was the member of the Aldhani heist that got crushed by the rolling pallet of credits. This actor has been on Black Mirror and a lot of BBC TV. I think he's going to be selling himself as Nemec, though, on Andor for quite a while. Kerry is Belle Swark. This was Cassian's sister from the flashbacks. She was in Season 1 as well. Pow is Derek Arnold, and it's the shortened name for the male Drabatan alien member of Cassian's crew during the Scarif mission. He is featured, I guess, only in an image or a short clip of training runners on Yavin. He's short in stature, long of mouth, gray. You would know the character. If you put the character into Google or something, you'll see him. The character, I mean, not Derek Arnold. Derek played roles and puppeteered in The Force Awakens, Last Jedi, Rogue One, Solo, Rise of Skywalker, the ill-fated Willow series, the ill-conceived The Acolyte series, and he was a senator in Season 2 of Andor as well as his work here in Episode 12. He also has done work on Jurassic World Dominion and Beetlejuice. Time to move along to the recap and discussion portion of our show.
He can go about his business.
You can go about your business.
Move along.
Move along. Move along.
The episode begins with some quiet moments inside the safe house. Kleya is lamenting her situation. Cassian and Melshi are here to rescue her. Where does she think they'll take her, if not Yavin? It would seem, however, that Luthen and Kleya have not been appreciated there. I think I mentioned this in the First Impressions podcast for BBY1, but why is this discussion happening now and not on the plane?
You're keeping Luthen alive. You can rest there. As a prisoner. As a hero. You need to see the place you helped build. You need to tell them what you told us.
From inside the safe house, we head inside ISB headquarters, and Partagaz is still overseeing this last-ditch effort to corral Luthen's assistant. At the end of the last episode, K2SO made his way onto the shuttle, and we heard the pilot of the shuttle plea for the droid to stay back. Now we see the extent of the damage he caused.
Nothing.
It's not us, so it's a link transmit from the ship, so it's a bit confusing.
There must be someone there.
Anyone else with a tactical line failure?
K2 has used the pilot's head to smash the control panel. Partagaz and the ISB are now without comms, just like Cassian and Melshi. K2 starts to head towards the safe house. Now, he did hear a location, but at the time it was given, a human might not have remembered the location. But remember, as they were descending, Cassian was giving out a whole bunch of numbers and like a sector and level this and floor this and all that.
Plate 7 grid. 3561 east. 65459 solar north. Level 5124. Incredible.
K2's a droid, so he knows and remembers where to go, and the sound of battle is going to get him the rest of the way anyways. Cassian destroys the radio in the safe house rather than risk taking it with him. The tactical team has been heading to them, having realized they were a floor down just last episode. And I had to go back and check. At the end of last episode, I thought they were already coming down this hallway. No, it was the other hallway. So they were marching down hallway 26. So great job maintaining continuity and having them come on to 27 just now. Melshi is going to be the first one out into the hall.
You can stop right there! Go, go, go. Slowly raise your hands above your head. No sudden movements. Hold your fire. Don't. What? Leave it.
The action is terrific. It's not over the top or ridiculous. It just feels as real as it could be in this universe. Melshi heads back inside real quick, makes a tactical decision to leave the door open at Cassian's insistence. I still don't understand the move, and I'll talk about why in a moment. With so much at stake here, if they're all captured, it's all over. One of them has to get the information that Lonnie and Luthen sacrificed for back to the rebellion, or fail that, they have to die trying. It is that important.
This is ISB! This is a warrant search! This is your first and final warning!
How many?
Don't know. I need to see open hands! And I need to see them now!
Is there another way out?
Not that we have time for.
We can still close the door. We'll be trapped as opposed to what? Okay, where are you?
Cassian does not know that K2 hasn't been captured. He doesn't. Luckily, we see K2 is still on his own march and not leaving any Imperial survivors. He kills the sentries near the elevator in quick fashion, like the KX droids did to Enza back on Gorman. Maybe even K2 was the one who did it. He picks up the sentry. Instead of throwing him in the air, he slams him to the ground. The one closest to the elevator comes out, gets a robotic leg kicking him square in the chest, and if not for his plastoid armor, surely that kick would have shattered his ribs, but the whiplash from slamming into the back of the elevator, probably lethal enough. Not that his helmet would have helped. K2 also now has one of their weapons. Sergeant Garil on floor 27 decides to toss a stun grenade into the apartment. It's shaped and resembles a thermal detonator, but it operates like a flashbang. Had the door been closed, this doesn't get used. And I asked a friend about this with some tactical training. He was actually the one that tipped me off to the issue with the upload in the last episode of my podcast, so thanks, Dave. He said it was odd. It stood out to him like it did to me, but his thought was perhaps Cassian wanted to draw people into the line of sight and even the odds. But Melshi said he didn't know how many were out there, and Cass didn't even ask him until after he said not to close the door. Anyway, the stunner incapacitates Cassian and Kleya, slamming them to the walls. I don't care what the thing looked like. As soon as that thing bounces in, I'm taking cover, right? Well, Melshi, it turns out, did just enough. So he's still alert. He ducks behind the wall toward the kitchen. He was coherent enough to take out the advancing soldier. And I might add, they're not using stun blasts. They're using actual blasts. Cassian is dazed, but more together than Kleya, who suffered more from the blast than he did. Cassian bravely uses his body as a shield on the ground covering her. Sergeant Garil sends in his other soldier, and at this point, he's probably not thinking about someone coming from behind. He's got someone on his flank, right?
What's the closest tactical unit we have in here?
Apparently everyone's out running down the emergency disease warrant.
Flood it! Get anything you can of it.
I'm just loving how that quick solve from Party Guys on the last episode ends up being so costly. They just wanted to get that picture out there as fast as possible, which might have been a good call. Had they thought about it a little more, maybe they could have reasoned that the disease angle would stretch resources thin. Maybe loop in those 2 Ministry of Enlightenment fellows just to get the fugitive aspect done until the Death Star gets online. I mean, you don't have to tell them a lot. Just tell them, hey, how can we get this out there without ruining our tactical resources?
Stop right there! Don't come any closer! I'm not telling you again! Flank on me!
Cass! Where are you? Back here!
And this fight in the hallway. I mean, Star Wars in hallways, right? Makes for a great scene, doesn't it? Luke on board Moff Gideon's cruiser, Darth Vader in the hallway at the end of Rogue One. It's just great. K2SO kills the sentry, picking up Supervisor Hirt, breaks his neck, uses him as a shield as he goes down, and Garrel is blasting rifle shots at his chest. Garrel tries to call for his soldier at the door, and then when he does, he crosses in front of the door, and Cassian kills him. K2 then throws Garrel like a ragdoll against the wall at the end of the hall.
Cassian, I've cleared a path.
Again, bravo on the scene. No one else could have come in and done what K2SO did. It was a great scene, and if Kleya had ever met him, maybe he could have been sent in alone to retrieve her, but I don't know that she had, so she might have tried to damage him. Partygaz, in silent panic, as he hears the radio chatter of other tactical teams that they're all being asked to respond. I mean, the actor, Anton Lesser, he shows in his face how badly Partygaz knows he is screwed. He's chastised underlings for so long, he must have forgotten or never knew what it was really like to be in their position. He was probably installed during the Clone Wars, or maybe closer to Order 66 or afterwards. He is helpless here, and Cassian and K2SO walk back with Melshi, carrying Kleya to their ship. There are people nearby who surely saw some of what went on, but by the time the ISB responds and starts asking questions, our heroes will be gone. And these bystanders, they may end up getting tortured or, for no reason, or imprisoned. They don't have any helpful information other than the obvious. The U-Wing takes off, leaves just as another tactical team responds, but there is no indication that this passing vehicle poses a threat, so the escape is a success.
I assume any doubts about my value have been erased.
They're making their way back to Yavin, but before we see the trouble that causes, we hear about the trouble that Saw Gerrera is causing on Jedha. He doesn't know why the Empire has shown so much interest there. Neither does the Rebellion proper yet. Mon Mothma is telling them of the risks to the operation while he's constantly putting his neck on the line.
We know you're on Jedha, Saw. We know you're picking off Imperial transports. We're trying to share what we hear about how dangerous that is making things for all of us.
What you know, what you hear, poking at my window.
Yeah, it's true he's a loose cannon, but he, like Luthen and Kleya, helped make Yavin possible. If they would have known what all the Kyber mining was for, maybe they could have gotten him to back off a little bit. Maybe not, but none of them know what's really going on. Every time Mon Mothma could get money somewhere without getting her own hands dirty, all of this was fine, right? Even when she knew what was going on, it was still fine, as long as she didn't have to live it. Now, she's been here on Yavin for a year, and she's had to live it. Suddenly, it's not so okay anymore.
Keep hijacking these transports and that will be the least of your problems.
You have no idea where I am, or your spies and infiltrators. You think I'd still be alive if I hadn't learned to bend them as I wish?
It's the Empire that's after you, Saw, not us.
If only you could fight, as well as you lie.
This is the scene, really, where I think the recharacterization of Bail Organa takes place. Or maybe just he's been more fleshed out than he ever has before. He was portrayed several episodes ago as being unaware of the infiltration of his rescue squad from Mon Mothma. She'd have been arrested or tortured. Here, he's clueless about the actual spycraft going on. Draven confirms, no, Saw's not crazy. We have been spying on him.
You're sure he's in Jedha? He's been warned.
He's insane.
He's not. We've been probing his team for over a year now. It's an active operation.
Which is how you're sure he's on Jedha.
This meeting with the holo call to Saw is interrupted by Lieutenant Poyle, who announces the return of a missing U-Wing. Everyone should get this is Cassian, but they're not wrong for being cautious. It is played up a little more than necessary because while comms were down on Coruscant, they're not down here. Cassian's calling, the rebellion's just not answering. I refuse to believe there isn't a protocol for dealing with a situation like this. There's got to be some code to let them know if they're being held and then forced to radio in or not. But Raddus scrambles X-Wings anyway. It does make for good tension. We know they're coming in hot because they've got Kleya, and she had a concussion, but they don't.
You're lucky Merrick's away. He'd go shoot it down himself.
Let's hope that's not necessary.
This reference to Merrick is a reference to Blue Leader in the movie Rogue One. He's the mustachioed leader of all starfighter squadrons, including obviously the blue one, that heroically sacrificed itself to fly into the skies of Scarif and provide cover for the infantry that was on the ground. Merrick himself was shot down in that movie, but he very clearly had some skill from what we saw of his piloting before that happened. Here, it's more of an Easter egg.
You should have filed a flight plan. Nothing.
Why aren't they answering?
We could be anybody.
They'll figure it out. We're getting close, aren't we?
I suspect we'll be shot down as an enemy probe.
Shut up, Kay.
But disobeying orders is so refreshing.
X-Wings flank Cassian, and we hear Sam Witwer's voice order them to follow commands. I'm pretty sure it was Sam. K2 jokes he plans to tell them he was kidnapped, and then he waves out the window. Willman limps out of the hangar to meet his friend, so it seems he's been let out of holding. There's an alarm sounding, but if this was just one plane or ship scouting for the Empire, the real threat is the coordinates have already been transmitted. It's a silly show of force here, but it does kind of fit how at this stage, even days before A New Hope, the rebellion is a little bit fractured still. They don't really have a strong-willed figure to lead. They do seem to be able to lead better, and to me, that fits better. But if Luthen was here, he might have even just shot him down out of his abundance of caution. Ironic, since it might have been him in the safe house with Kleya. As it stands, it's just Cassian and Melshi and K2 and an injured Kleya. Draven commands them to stop when they're getting out of the ship, but he sees them, so why is he delaying and saying stop? It's all for tension. I get that part of it. I understand. But something in my brain tells me this isn't how it really plays out. Cassian's out of the ship. He could mouth or make a face that only the soldiers and Draven could see to indicate that they were found out and in trouble, but they're not. They should know who's missing based on what happened. It happened, what, earlier today? Or at most yesterday? And now, clearly, Kleya needs help.
She needs a doctor, please!
Take it to the sick bay. Weapons down. Okay. Keep him at the hangar. You, droid.
Me?
Power down this ship, walk away, then power down yourself until further notice.
I have important news.
I certainly hope so.
So Kleya's going to get her help. Cassian's going to go with Draven to this meeting. They head directly into the same space that they earlier met with Saw via holocall. Admiral Raddus is here. Two senators we meet in Rogue One are here. Senator Noah Jewel of Oiter. He's a finance guy. And Senator Tinra Pamlo of Terrace. She's the head of education. These two must have been the only ones on Yavin, because even in Rogue One, and in Pamlo's case, the Bad Batch, they're a little useless when it comes to the actual business of rebelling. Maybe that's the point of showing them. But Mon Mothma's here, Bail Organa is here, and Bail comes off as the kind of jerk that we're going to see more of in this series. And I call him a jerk. That's just how I see it.
Sir.
Apparently, you've been chasing something you feel is worth violating every rule we live by.
Not exactly. I went to save an old friend. Of that, I'm guilty. It's what I learned when I got there that made us come back so recklessly.
You went to save Luthen Rail.
Luthen is dead.
At the news of Luthen's death, people are mostly somber, especially Mon Mothma, who looks even a little sad. Cassian tells them he found Kleya, and Mon Mothma has to clue in the group she's Luthen's assistant. So they don't even really know who Kleya is. He says she's got news. Instead of Pamela asking, well, what's the information? She snarkily asks, where is she? I dislike pretty much everyone at this table. Maybe not Radis. Draven says she's in the infirmary, and thankfully at least Mon Mothma asks, is she alright? I feel like I have to play a lot of this scene, because when I say I dislike the characters, maybe you're thinking, oh, I just don't like the actors, or... I think if I remind you of the lines that they're given, that'll help explain why. Maybe you haven't just gotten done watching this episode. Cassian starts by explaining what we saw at the very beginning of this story arc in episode 10. Lonnie passes information that the energy project is a lie. And again, Lonnie doesn't get mentioned here. None of these people knew him, and I'm not even sure if Mon Mothma remembers seeing him that night at Davos Golden's exhibit when Kleya took out the bug. But he's a hero that gets totally passed over. But never mind that. Cassian just told him, hey, there's a secret weapon being built. And the Senate, of whom 4 of the people in the room are or were members, they helped to build this thing. Instead of being just skeptical, these politicians are snarky and they reveal really egotistical natures.
The energy project.
That's hardly a secret. We've been funding it for years.
Without details or inspections.
What kind of a weapon are we talking about?
I don't know about the weapon.
Then what's the point?
Let him finish.
That's not the kind of admonishment you'd expect to have to be given in a top secret meeting regarding the safety of the entire rebellion. Cassian continues with the rest of the episode title, Jedha, Kyber, Erso, and the refrain that Luthen told Kleya and Kleya repeated for Melshi and Cassian in the safe house, but Cassian does explain it rather than just bark out Jedha, Kyber, Erso.
Luthen was told that there's a connection between the Gorman destruction, the Kyber mining on Jedha, and an Imperial engineer named Galen Erso.
All of this conveniently wrapped in a big energy program basket.
I'm just reporting what he was told.
It sounds like a paranoid fantasy.
Now, I get it. They were just talking to Saw, but they just heard from him. He's someone they're contacting, but they put Luthen on his level, and they haven't spoken to him, anyone in the room, including Mon Mothma, in a year? Is it actually Mon Mothma's fault because of the things that she may have told others? About Tay Kolma being killed by him or anything? I don't think we've seen the recklessness that they try to foist upon him here at the table. I don't think that was borne out in the scenes that we saw, unless they hold Luthen responsible for Gorman, since maybe that's why Cassian left. I mean, that's about the time that he joined this part of the rebellion. The refusal to play that game that Luthen was sending in Vel and Cinta to help foster a rebellion there. I mean, that's got to be what sent Cassian to the growing rebellion. And if that's the case, then maybe Cassian relaying this now is even better proof since he trusts Luthen.
Luthen Rail died for this.
And how has that been verified?
Are you serious?
Captain!
I have to agree with Cassian's tone here. It doesn't make me feel great that Draven is somehow the spy master. If he's asking for decorum from Cassian and then letting the senators talk that way, what have these idiots been doing for the rebellion? I mean, are they at most smuggling or diverting supplies amounting to a rounding error? To be fair, maybe some of these have stories like Mon Mothma, and we've only seen hers and not theirs. But is this really the group that's going to somehow rebuild the Republic?
The problem, Captain, is Luthen. I know you share a long history. Both of you. It's hard not to wonder if your judgment here might be less than objective.
I'll have to disagree. It's everything I know about Luthen that makes me believe this is real.
Now Cassian tries to be respectful and polite, but the issue is still these politicians. I mean, honestly, what's the difference here between this brain trust and the one that was devising the rebellion on Gorman? The only difference, as I see it, is the Empire led the Gormans to the slaughter from the very beginning. Why the Empire wasn't running a counter-spy campaign against the rebellion, I don't know. How were they so inept that this group at this table is outsmarting them in the end?
We're talking about someone who's been a thorn in our side since we began building this alliance.
Did you know him? Any of you? Does anyone in this room besides Senator Mothma, have any idea how much you owe him?
Oh, please.
This guy. Jebel could use a force choking, I'll tell you that. Maybe they're actually smart, but it's hard not to hate this arrogance and the ignorance.
When I say I know Luthen, I mean I know the good and the bad. I know what was wrong with him. I had a front row seat on that. And I made my choice 2 years ago to join here and be part of this. But none of that can take away what he did and how hard it was.
This is the best argument, and I acknowledge it's what we were shown, and we can't see from every character's point of view. But we weren't shown anything to lead us to believe that what was being said about Luthen was atrocious enough to cause problems, except in his dealings with Mon Mothma and Cassian and Lani, and the one that he had with Saw in Season 1. We, the audience, are on Cassian's side because we know what's going on. I just don't think showing us the rebels getting this so wrong is wise, then, if you're not going to set up why in each case.
I don't know if what he was told is true or not. But it's insulting to hear him run down by people who have given a fraction of his sacrifice to this rebellion.
Enough!
Enough? No, that's it. We know where Bell ends up. But that's less a choice of sacrifice on his part and more ignorance to what might happen if his adopted daughter got captured on an errand that we see start in Rogue One. And this next line, I mean, does Pamela come from a planet where politics works differently and speaking the way she does is a more electable quality? Or is she royalty on her planet? Because she certainly doesn't seem like the right person to head up the rebellion's Ministry of Education.
When's the last time you two spoke?
A year ago.
A year ago.
When he had me rescue Senator Mothma from the Senate.
Duly noted.
I really don't want to harp on it too much, but I mean, if it was just these two, maybe I can understand, but it's also Bail Organa showing ignorance. So far, we've seen his crack team of rescuers infiltrated by the ISB, risking Mon Mothma's life, either knowingly or without that knowledge, but surely he was told about that issue in the years since. Now we have this character doubling down by threatening to ignore active intelligence.
A lot can happen in a year, wouldn't you agree? He stayed on Coruscant too long. The rumors we've been hearing is that the ISB was on to Luthen.
I'm afraid it's just as easy to believe that Luthen was the one being played.
Or worse. His paranoia, his secrecy, his inability to collaborate.
If you're not going to trust and believe intelligence gathered by your spies, why have spies at all? Mon Mothma seems to be coming around to Cassian's thinking, but again, other than him, she's the only one in the room that has had any interaction with Luthen that could leave an impression other than the public, showy, flamboyant storekeeper that he let the public see.
The web of doubts that he created. It makes everything unbelievable.
So we do nothing?
Dodonna and Merrick will be back tomorrow night.
This is active intelligence.
More like puffed up speculation.
We will follow up tomorrow night with a full session. As of now, Captain Andor, you are forbidden from accessing your ship and confined to quarters.
There's another Easter egg of sorts. Dodonna is the one who gives the Death Star briefing in A New Hope, the one that Luke talks about bullseyeing Womp Rats in. So that explains why we don't see him in the room. And clearly, they're more effective as leaders, Dodonna and Merrick. It might be due to military experience. This group? Ugh. At least Mon Mothma ends up chiming in when he requests permission to visit the infirmary to see Kleya. No wonder Kleya questioned coming here. Draven escorts Cassian toward the infirmary and uses the opportunity to talk about one of their ongoing espionage missions against Saw. This episode is definitely trying to tie together the show to Rogue One because we get yet another Easter egg.
Your contact with Saw Gerrera.
Tivik.
He sent 3 urgent messages from Kafrene in the past 10 hours.
So's on Jedha. And you think this can wait?
You're in no position to make suggestions, Captain. Make it quick.
Tivik and Kafrene. Tivik is the guy with the bad arm that Cassian kills at the beginning of Rogue One. Kafrene is where that happens. Cassian visits Kleya. He admits he he was wrong. She hasn't exactly been welcomed. The scene moves to Vel's home on Yavin, and she realizes that her cousin, and I still think they should have been sisters, cousin Mon Mothma has come to visit. They were supposed to have breakfast the next day, so coming the night before must mean, well, whatever it was, couldn't wait. Mon Mothma breaks the bad news.
Luthen's dead. Cassian brought Kleya back, but...
When did this happen?
Just now.
Cassian?
He's been grounded.
He should stop saving people.
Amen, sister. I mean, the nerve of that guy. I appreciate the somberness here because whether any of them liked how Luthen did everything, it was the way he did it that got them here. Did he have to do everything he did? Maybe not. But it's hard to argue with success. I mean, unless you're an idiot politician. Not Mon, of course. She does the sensible thing. She tries to vet the information.
They brought back some curious information. I won't share it, because I'm hoping he'll tell it to you, and you'll tell me what you think.
Spy on him.
Help me believe him.
We hear a peal of thunder and cut to the next scene. It's very brief. This supports my guess that Luthen took a father figure role over Wilman Pak. The scene is just Cassian breaking the news about Luthen's death to Will. But Will lost his dad on Ferrix, caused the death of Brasso, and yes, I do blame him. And that was like a brother to him. And now Luthen dies. He seems to take it hard, but it's a short scene. There's no sign of Draven. Did they forget that Cassian was supposed to be confined to quarters? Did he actually lead him to his quarters and then Cassian leave? I don't know. More thunder. We cut to a room inside the pyramids at headquarters. Oh, there's Draven. The rebellion gets another message from Tivik on Kafrene. So I guess Draven just let him go. He just trusted Cassian to go back to his hut or something. I don't know. If you've seen Rogue One, you know that Tivik has the news about Bodhi Rook and how he was sent by Galen Erso. So this is really important information. But why suddenly do we now get like, oh, they're so resistant, and now all of a sudden, now he trusts him? The thunder that has been punctuating the scene transitions has foreshadowed rain. The skies open up for another scene. It's Vel doing the spy thing. She visits Cassian. They start by toasting Luthen, and Vel agrees to do it just this once. I thought she liked him. I don't know. Then they start to get into the Fallen that have helped the rebellion.
Can't toast them all, can we?
Is it that they can't toast them all, or they just don't want to, or don't remember them all? They get Gorn, Nemik, Terriman, and Cassian adds Cinta, who died later. Obviously, they both leave out the treacherous Arval Skeen. Then they get more general and branch out from Aldhani, listen to the Gormans, the people of Ferrix, the Aldhani people, and Vel adds in Cassian's mother, Marva. Cassian doesn't mention Brasso or Salman Pak. It's true to the statement that they can't toast them all.
I've heard people claim they were there when it happened.
I'd kill anyone I heard say that.
I believe you would.
Vel comes straight out with a question on Mon's mind. Is the story real? Both Vel and Cassian were used by Luthen, but somehow only Vel is to be completely trusted by leadership. Cassian points out, hey, the guy died for it. He was so careful that he routinely had people killed who threatened to reveal him and Kleya. So maybe dying for this information does lend some credibility?
He died for it. Does it matter what he did to us along the way? Does it matter how we twisted him? None of this exists without him. None of us are here. Kleya wouldn't lie about it.
Vel says she wants to hear the intel from Cassian. We don't hear it. We cut to Kleya sitting up in the infirmary. She's alone, and I just can't imagine why. I mean, these are the things that bother me. No one's watching her. Not just she's a patient, but it's one that they feel is connected to someone so hated as Luthen and brought in by this captain that disobeyed orders, and he was supposed to be confined to quarters, and he's not. I mean, it's kind of silly to overlook something like that, in my opinion. But the scene doesn't really even have a place here. It should come after the next one, because she's going to end up wandering in the rain, but the next scene is Major Partagas listening to the Nemik Manifesto. Supervisor Legret enters. They discuss how it seems to be everywhere and it's hard to contain. Then Partygaz reveals they don't have any idea who made the recording.
What do you think it is?
I'm afraid they're waiting for you, sir. I told them I'd bring you down.
May I have a moment to collect my thoughts?
It's a terrific scene. And it brings back that manifesto showing that maybe it had a bigger part to play in the rebellion than even we knew. This scene is mostly without dialogue. Legret knows what he meant by collect his thoughts. It becomes blatantly aware when he pulls out the blaster pistol what Partygaz meant. He's not going to go face to face with Vader or Palpatine or anyone else tasked with exacting penalty for the failures. To this career Imperial, death's better. I liked how Legret motioned to the stormtroopers, to just let it be. It was a nice scene to include. Like, we're giving him this time to do what, he needs to do. And from there, we go to Kleya, who's left the infirmary, and she's wandering in the wooded areas of Yavin in the rain. Then we see Vel's leaving Cassian's in the rain, and she says he should look up Bix. He seems content to leave her alone because he says she wouldn't be safe with him. And a couple of episodes ago, remember, that's when she left. So we really haven't heard too much about her, and we'd be tempted almost to forget about her. Vel's advice to him is, don't wait too long to get in contact with her again. Now, does she know what eventually we find out? Or is it just that she regrets losing all that time with Cinta? We know that the time will never come for Cassian. It was good timing for Vel to leave when she did, though, because she runs into Kleya in the rain. She almost can't believe that Vel is here. Kleya can't, oh my gosh, what are you doing? Did she not know that she was alive? Or was she just surprised that she happened to be there when she started wandering? Vel takes her back into camp.
I'm sorry about Luthen. What you did for him, I can't imagine that was easy.
It had to be done.
It gets tiring saying that, doesn't it?
I happen to like this scene. Kleya isn't sure what she should be. She's a little lost. She was a little lost more than she was wandering around. The goal has been to get this rebellion started since she was a child. Now they're here. Luthen's been leading her, and she says she was taught to always know the way out before you go in. The way out was pushing the panic button like they had to on Coruscant. The way out was her preventing him from being tortured and honoring his choice of sacrifice. Now, she doesn't even know where she's at. I mean, what is Yavin? Vel answers back with that familiar coded phrase, I have friends everywhere. Great line. It's a little comforting, at least a little comforting, because Kleya here is the picture of PTSD. Vel takes her leave, and the scene heads back to Cassian.
We've been released.
They threw us out. Tired of listening to him.
None of that is true. General Draven brought us home.
He's outside.
Maybe as a droid and a soldier, K2 and Melshi had to endure a little more rigorous confinement. But again, I don't know why they just hold these two, but then they give this longer leash to Cassian and Kleya. So Draven wants to meet, so Cassian hears him out. I don't know why Tivik is the tipping point for Draven. But finally, they're starting to come around.
Jedha, Kyber crystal, and ISB Marlin. Luthen dying to get us in motion. Now Tivik keeps calling us. If this is all a trap, it's a brilliant way to spring it.
How do I get to Kafrene?
Draven and Mon Mothma go to see Bail Organa, and he's still being characterized as a bit of a jerk in Andor. I guess it fits with how Leia ends up being so sassy, but it's different from what we've seen in the past. We then see Cassian as he dreams of his missing sister. Earlier this season, we saw dreams being residuals of torture, right, for Bix. So I have to imagine this is still something that bothers Cassian, and we're supposed to understand that he's never getting away from it. K2 wakes him up because Bail has come to talk. He starts by asking if he slept well and saying he's not sleeping well either. And Bail tells him Draven has his orders. Go to Kafrene, get the intel from Tivik. Andor asks what's changed.
If I die fighting the Empire, I want to go down swinging. You find that amusing?
No, but you and Luthen would have gotten along much better than you think.
May the Force be with you, Captain.
May the Force be with you, Captain, are the last words of dialogue spoken for almost 4 minutes. Yes, I know Melshi's heard counting off a run, but that's in the background. That's not, specialized dialogue. You almost didn't even notice the lack of speaking, though, because we're seeing the last bits of fabric between this show and Rogue One come together behind a score from Bertel and Roberts. It starts out slow and low. Cassian's just getting himself ready. He's putting on the outfit that he wears when we first see him in Rogue One. He gets his blaster ready, waters his plants, and then he walks outside. We see members of his team are on a run as he walks by, and these are some of the people who are going to sacrifice themselves in a few days on Scarif. We see Will and Drina together, happy. We see Mon Mothma and Vel chatting over breakfast at the mess hall. So Mon is just eating with the plebes, even though she is a former senator and one of the leaders. She's just eating alongside everybody else. Then we see this really curious scene of Mon's husband and Davos Golden's wife, and they're sharing a car on Coruscant. There's a bottle of something. We know Perrin and Renai both came from Chandrila, so maybe Davo ended up dead or in jail, and Perrin and Renai were just left with each other after Mon left. But Renai is leaning on him. She's like asleep, leaning on him. At least they put him in a car and not in a bedroom. There's room to imagine what this is all about. It could be innocent, but clearly there's some trauma. And I think the scene is supposed to tell us that they're helping each other through it, even if it is just with applying it with alcohol. I would suspect having children married to each other makes their entanglement much more likely, even if it would also be more complicated. It's not a long scene, but it is one of the most shocking, I think. Well, maybe not, because after we see Kleya waking up on a cot, we cut to Dedra Meero, and it looks like she's in a prison uniform. She's seated, staring straight ahead. Kleya walks to the doorway, surveys peace and tranquility on Yavin, and then we cut back to Dedra again. It's bedtime, and I think we're supposed to understand this is Narkina 5. Lights go out, she starts crying, head in hands. The floor lights up, electrified. There's somebody, you can see somebody else is with her up in one of the bunks behind her. It's a great scene. I think it's important. She got punished. Will she be there all the way through the New Republic, or are they going to, reconstitute her at some point? Back to Cassian walking off to his ship. He spots the Force Healer lady. She sees him and freezes. She's unloading some supplies, and then he just gives her the slightest of nods. It's like, yep, thanks for what you did. And he gave that woman hope, and he's going to end up being responsible for giving so many more people hope, right? Then we see Saw looking out on his window on Jedha. I suppose it might be the same one he takes his last look out. There's a Star Destroyer parked above the city. You can see it way, way, way in the distance. And then we go back to Cassian. He's getting ready to board the U-Wing. And then we go to Director Krennic as he's viewing the Death Star without the focus lens installed, because it's going to be installed in Rogue One. Then Cassian boards. We see K2SO waiting in the cockpit for him, and we hear our first dialogue in 3 3/4 minutes.
There's a rumor we have a flight plan.
The Ring of Kafrin.
Tivik?
We'll take the quick way.
It's so much easier when I know what we're doing.
That's right, almost 4 minutes without speaking, and then we get this little scene. It seems as if we're going to finish with them flying off, and that'll be it. Then cue the tape for Rogue One. No. We head back to a planet we haven't seen since the first story arc, Mina Rao. B2EMO is there. But we're not here to see him. It's nice to see him. It's nice to see the girl that Brasso was cozying up to. But it's Bix we're here to see. She's walking out into the field of growing grain, and she's got someone in her arms. We are to understand it's her child, and it's Cassian's child. So Cassian Andor never gets to meet his son and never gets to find out what happened to his sister.
You could go again. One more, and I win.
And that's the end. All 12 episodes of Andor are now streaming for season 2. For a long time, I heard from a lot of friends who were like, yeah, I couldn't make it through the first few episodes, but I guess all the hype helped them finish it, because at the last poker game I went to, people were saying, yes, one of the best shows of, I wish they would do more like this. This is the kind of Star Wars I want to see. And there are no plans for any kind of a season 3 or a follow-up. I mean, you can't do it with Andor, but you could continue with the adventures of these survivors at Yavin and beyond through Rogue One and A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi and beyond. What happens to Kleya? She could lead some of this new spiring. I mean, you've got an opening, right? Draven's got an opening. Does Bix raise Cassian's child and they never leave Mina Rao? Or do they? Was Cassian's sister someone important? Did she figure into the rebellion against the Empire? Or is she just an early casualty? Or did she just live out a normal life or have a happily ever after? What happens to Vel? Right? She's still able to work. Her and Kleya could team up. What about Willman and Drina? Will's not my favorite character, but he's there and he's still alive. I don't really care what Legends has to say about some of our well-known heroes like Mon Mothma. So we know what happens to everyone on Scarif in Rogue One. And I know there are many people who treat the Legend stories as gospel truth, Star Wars truth. I never considered them to be a proper part of the story. And that's one thing I guess I agree with Disney about when it comes to Star Wars. And I laid out a plan for how Disney could do a season 3 or call it something else. You know, they were going to do that show, Rangers of the New Republic. They could do this instead. Go listen to my First Impressions podcast for BBY 1's story arc, and you'll hear a little bit more about that. I'm not planning on a wrap-up podcast episode. I think I've done enough, and it took me long enough. And I usually say all I have to say in these recap and discussion episodes. But if there's some late feedback, maybe I'll do a feedback episode.
Seems a wise idea.
I do apologize for keeping you so long on this episode 12 and keeping you waiting for so long. But you can send feedback if you really want to, or comments of the show, via email at thisisthewaypodcast@gmail.com. Yes, there are other ways, but the best method is still our email address. Please subscribe wherever you can if you haven't already. Like this video, rate it highly. Tell people who love Star Wars about this podcast. I'm your host, Steve Lascalzo, and this is The Way. May the Force be with you always.